Oh, hey! I'm glad you're here. Or there, or wherever you are, at whatever age you're at. It doesn't matter. No, for this special episode, and we will do one of these every season or so, for this moment, we're traveling back in time to when many of us solidified our tastes in music and movies. Of course, I'm referring to our teens, those 7 years of some of the highest highs and the lowest lows. But in between those life experiences, many of us were in the cinematic temples, also known as theaters, being imprinted upon by the cinematic gods. I mean, where were you when at 13 years of age your teenage eyes witnessed something of pure magic on that enormous screen? Where you walked back out into the sunlight a changed 13-year-old? Or that fateful sleepover at 14 when Chad busted out his older brother's VHS copy of something meant for older eyes? The next morning, returning home, you thought, well, there was me as a child before, but due to Caligula, I am now a different person. You get what I mean. It didn't have to be Caligula. And those experiences are different for everyone, and I hope you enjoy these special episodes as much as I do. This is the first. I have a few more special guests I'm finalizing, so without further rigmarole, I don't know if that's a word, we'll just keep moving. Alright, here we go. This is VHS Presents Screen Teens. Hello, and welcome to VHS Presents Screen Teens, our alt format where we talk about the things we've seen on screens in our teens. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall. Our guest for this episode, for this format, and it's the first time ever, is Matt Bledsoe. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Dirk, especially on the first episode of this. I'm very
Yes.
excited. I've been thinking about it for a while. I will tell you, when you pitched me this idea, within like a day or two, I'd written everything out. I was very excited to talk
Oh,
about these
wow.
movies. It was like the fastest I've ever prepped for any podcast. I was like, oh, that was kind of easy. I was Googling and I was like, got it, got my list. So I've
That's
been ready and waiting for a while.
that's wonderful to hear because it was an idea that I had that I was never going to do, and I threw it out to our podcast circle on Discord, and everyone was very supportive and was like, "No, do it. Just throw it in once in a while in the series." And so I was like, "All right, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna ask Matt Bledsoe." So I'm glad that you're here. People, I'm sure, remember you on this podcast from our episode tackling Project Metal Beast for all the
How
Project.
could they forget?
I mean, a legend. But especially you are the host of the Film Feast podcast, which I had the pleasure of guesting on, where we ranked all of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequels.
And we survived.
Yes,
We
we did, and it affected me in positive and negative ways. Positive in the way that I would love to do anything like that again. And now I'm looking at different horror franchises, and I'm like, because I've never thought about them this way. I know some people like with the Halloween and the whatnot, they get very into like, I like 4 and not 6 or whatever. I just always taken these sequels on as they've come and just watched them and whatever. But now, like getting to sort of look at it and rank it in personal preference is quite a fun project. So I was very thankful you had me on.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. It was fun. I mean, it was not so fun to watch the movies,
Right.
a couple of the movies. To talk about it and rank them was fun, and people seem
Yes.
to really like it. So, yeah, it was a good time. I think we joked about Hellraiser. That might be the one that's like a bridge too far.
It's
Because I did that voluntarily once a few
right.
years ago, and I don't think I could do it again. Because,
No, I think New World
yeah,
Pictures podcast also ranked all of them, and that's,
yes.
I mean,
I remember when they did it, I said Godspeed, because
yeah,
it's going to be brutal.
very, very, very tough. But we'll see. There's some good stuff out there. We'll see what triggers this. Now, the way this all works out is I ask each guest to select one movie that they saw theatrically from each year that they were in their teens. Just films that played a role in forming their cinematic taste. So these aren't required to be favorites or best ofs in any way, but rather just one movie from each year that contributed to who the cinephile you are today is. We do allow each guest one SPP or slumber party pick, which is an opportunity to select one movie that you rented, saw at a friend's house, or in any way were exposed to outside of the cinema that contributed more, we'll say, than any film you saw in the theater that year. Basically, the idea is like oftentimes it's discussed in your teenage years, music, you start to formulate like, I like this band, or I'm into grunge or rap or heavy metal or whatever. But it also happens with movies, and I think by breaking this up by year, we can see this some of the small little stepping stones that created the patchwork, passionate cinephile that you are today. So, Matt, how was the process for you?
It was fun. I mean, it was simple actually.
Nice.
We talked about the years that I was a teenager. So I went to Google and I said movies of this year. And then I said, oh, yes, I love that movie. And it was shockingly easy for me because
Oh, that's
the
great.
favorites really jumped out. I already had some ideas and I was like, then once I Googled, I was like, oh, yeah, that movie, that movie. The only hard part was sometimes trying to pick one movie. And I'll be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you, I might try to work some other multiple picks into a
Sure.
year. I can land on a favorite, but there's I think '04 is the year I have four picks written down.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's tough sometimes, but like yeah, it was super fun. It was actually very easy when I was like after like 15 minutes, I felt like I was done. I was like, good, got it.
Wow.
We did just talk before we started, kind of clarifying. I was like, okay, I'll switch this out. But yeah, no, it was a fun process. And I looked at the movies I have listed. I'm like, yeah, these all really deeply influenced me. And also, I realized I feel like I'm really like a basic 30-year-old white guy film fan. I didn't know that was a thing when I was a teenager doing this, and I got onto the internet and found out, oh, right, we all kind of like the same movies and have the same story, and
Yeah.
guys of a certain taste. You'll see very clearly what my tastes are. But yeah, it should be interesting.
Yeah, well, I think by doing it theatrically, it is very limiting by taking the randomness out of the video store. Because we do find different avenues and things that we're interested in. I've heard you talk about a variety of films, but when you look at like the specific years of a teenager and theatrically in the States, there's not a lot that, I mean, there is a lot that's cut out.
Right.
For me, foreign cinema, independent cinema, a lot of that stuff wasn't making its way to our theaters in the small town I lived in, but very much
Hmm.
became something I was interested in later on. So it's not that we're saying this is all Matt Bledsoe is into, but we will be saying that when he was 13, 14, 15, these might have been some of the big films for him to see for sure.
Yeah, these were all definitely it left an impact, I'll say. They left an impact on me for sure.
First one, Deep Impact. Wait, what? What year was? No, that's
No, no.
that was
Never actually seen Deep Impact, funny enough.
Me neither. No, I somehow missed that one. That was like The Core. Is it like one of those movies? Is it a meteor film?
I believe so,
This is
I
good for a
think.
movie podcast. I'll bring up a film that I don't know anything about, and then we'll talk about not knowing it. That's a bummer. I think Quentin Tarantino was just chastising podcasts for this very same thing.
Oh.
So
Well, sorry, Quentin, if
I'm
he's
sorry.
listening.
Yeah, he's a big fan. He's a big, big fan. Before we get to the first pick, I will say at the end of each pick, I will tell you my pick that I thought you would have selected for each year, which I base on absolutely nothing. So here we go.
Oh, well, that's the part I'm excited about, is see what you picked and see.
Yes.
I feel like you're gonna get some
Yeah,
just by
I don't think so.
knowing me a little bit. You're gonna pick some very easily, so we will see.
All right, perfect. All right, well then, we're off to the races. We start in the year 2000, a year with over 200 movies playing in theaters, a year when How the Grinch Stole Christmas was the top grossing film, but we also got Space Cowboys, Bicentennial Man, and Chocolat. Which of these is the pick of a 13-year-old Matt Bledsoe? I don't know. 13 is a year also when Elliott Smith released Figure 8, Belle and Sebastian released their album Fold Your Hands Child, You Walk Like a Peasant, and Limp Bizkit released the classic album Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water. I mean, will Matt then choose Chocolat? Also in this year, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston marry, and Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob Thornton. It was wild times, but imagine being 13. So, Matt, what is your pick?
Okay, so my pick is, you know what's funny? The first thing I thought of was the movie Memento by Christopher
Oh,
Nolan, but I didn't
yeah.
see Memento in the theater. And I realized, no, there's a movie that's more important to me than Memento, which is Mission Impossible 2,
Okay.
directed by the great John Woo, because I realized, wow, no, that movie was really big for me because it was the first John Woo movie I saw in a theater.
Love it.
Might have been the first movie I've seen because he was making radar action movies, and I wasn't allowed to see those. I've told stories on my podcast about my mom having to describe action movies to me because she went on dates to go see them, and then I couldn't. I was like, "Tell me about Face Off. Tell me about Broken Arrow." I
Ah,
was like,
yeah.
wanted to hear the plot. So pretty sure my first John Woo, definitely first John Woo in a theater. And that sent me on a path of who is this guy? I thought it was like one of the coolest movies I've ever seen. The motorcycle chase near the end is still amazing. I love the whole movie, honestly. It gets a lot of crap in the Mission Impossible franchise because it's not like the movies now at all. I think they went in very different directions.
Hmm.
It's not like the first movie. It's not like the movies that come after it. It's very weird in that series. Like it's very John Woo still. It's gunfights and doves and slow motion. It's all you want, and I thought it was awesome. I was so into it.
I
I was
love it.
so deeply invested in Mission Impossible 2 that I remember watching Entertainment Tonight or something the weekend after it came out because I wanted to see if it won number one at the box
Oh,
office. And
wow.
I was like rooting for the box office. Like, yeah, I never because I was that into the movie that I wanted to win number one. It
Oh, I
was
love that.
very strange. I was a strange child. See, this is like other kids. I'm like, I'm rooting for movie box office numbers.
Well,
Like,
you're
I'm not playing
13 and
sports.
you're seeing something awesome. Also, you're talking to someone who doesn't play sports either. So I would I
Okay,
would
yeah,
be
yeah.
right there. I'd be like, "Yes, you want something awesome to be successful, like for sure." I didn't see I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen a single Mission Impossible movie. I know. I
Wow.
know. It's
Oh, Dirk, they're wonderful.
it's
They're really
crazy.
good.
I should. I will at some point. But I remember the ads for this film, and I think Tom Cruise does like a front wheelie. I don't know if
Oh
that
my
has a
God.
different name on the
Yes.
motorcycle, and it's like it looks awesome in the trailer.
Pure cinema, Dirk.
Yeah.
It's pure. It's like that was the moment where I was like, "This is the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen." Because he
Yes.
does the front wheelie and then shoots a gun and a car blows up. It's like that's what I like in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Like right there, like in that little moment,
Yes.
that kind of stuff is like the coolest stuff. Then I was like, I gotta see more John Woo movies, and that led me to Hard Boiled and The
See?
Killer,
Love
which were
it.
very hard to get my hands on
Mhm.
as a 13-year-old with not living in like a big city,
Yeah.
so I had to find those like years later on like old DVDs. But I was like Mission Impossible 2 is definitely that led me on a whole different path to like finding John Woo and Hong Kong action movies and a whole thing. So still love that movie so much. I will defend it all the time.
That is fantastic. I love it. I love that you mentioned Memento also. I had just moved to Seattle that year, and so Memento did play in a little art house theater because it was, the select cities I'd heard about my entire freaking life, and I finally lived in a city that was a select city, and so I did get to see Memento in a small, albeit theater, and it was great. But I'll have to watch Mission Impossible 2 and see if it's better.
I don't even know if better, just more important to me. Mission
Yes,
Impossible 2, definitely. Like
that's what this
Memento's
is all
great,
about.
but and plus I saw it, I don't know, a year or two later
Right.
on DVD, so it wouldn't count anyway. But yeah, Mission Impossible 2 is definitely the pick. And that's the one I thought was kind of weird. I don't know if that was your guess. I'm so curious now.
Oh, yes. Well, my prediction was Dr. T and the Women, so I was close.
That came out in 2000?
I don't know.
I thought it was earlier.
That's what my sources said. So
Oh
maybe it
wow.
was just still in the theater because it was such a powerful juggernaut of cinema. But no, 13-year-old Matt Bledsoe was not into Dr. T and the Women, starting off what
Oh.
might be a tragic streak of predictions for
Oh
myself.
boy.
Okay, well,
Can't wait to see how this goes.
as we turn a page in the life of Matt, it becomes 2001. Young Matt is 14. The choices? Hundreds yet again. Would he be most moved by the heartfelt epic Pearl Harbor, or would a 14-year-old Matt be inspired by the perfect chemistry in Exit Wounds between Steven Seagal and DMX? Did he identify with Jeffrey Rush and the Marquis de Sade in Quills, or perhaps Hedwig in The Angry Inch? It's hard to say what film a 14-year-old Matt Bledsoe would pick. It's difficult to predict, but maybe if we look at television, the debut of Lizzie McGuire on Disney, Invader Zim on Nickelodeon, and The Ellen Show, would this influence the 14-year-old Matt? Only time will tell, and that time is right now. Matt, what did you choose?
Well, this is gonna be really tough because I'm gonna pull my slumber party pick
There
out
it is, the
here.
SPP. Here we go.
Because we had a conversation before we started recording, but about I would kind of messed up on this year, and I looked at the releases, and I was like, I don't know if anything that came out in theaters really
Right.
struck me. I maybe because I saw an '02, I'm sure, but I'm gonna say it's '01. I don't have anything else. But it's a still important movie. I have two. They go hand in hand. I wonder if you'll let me do this. So
Okay.
hear me out. Reservoir Dogs by Tarantino.
Right.
I saw that at a friend's house on TV, and I was like, well, this is really cool. What is this? And
At
immediately
14.
went at 14. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. This is very
And
cool.
it was, I mean, at that point, it was like, oh, this is really cool and edgy and all this stuff. We went to FYE, which I think a few of those still
They
exist, and
do. I
in the
just saw one
mall
at
the
the
next.
mall. Yeah.
They're still kind of hanging on, and they had Reservoir Dog DVDs. If you remember, they had different colors for each of the guys, and they had their faces. It was like
Sure.
each guy had his own separate slipcover for the movie. Very ahead of their time on the slipcover game. So I think I got the only one that was left, which was Mr. Brown, which was Tarantino. And I went home and poured into this DVD.
Nice.
This Reservoir Dogs DVD. I don't know how much stuff got ported over to the Blu-ray, but this DVD maybe more fundamental to my movie love than almost
Oh,
anything because that DVD is packed with
yes.
great stuff. They talk about the class of 92 at Sundance with Robert Rodriguez and El Mariachi, and I think Allison Anders comes up, and a bunch of other indie filmmakers and how big that year was. Tarantino talks about a bunch of influences I at that point had either never heard of or barely heard of,
Oh,
like
yeah,
Godard and
sure.
Melville and John Woo and a bunch of people. And it was like getting all this film knowledge at one time from this DVD. And
Yeah,
I went through like every single special feature. I was completely obsessed. And then that led me, of course, to Pulp Fiction the same year. So they kind of go hand in hand. That
they
began
do.
my Tarantino obsession and
That's
my
a
film obsession.
that's a powerful SPP double play, and we're gonna let it. We'll let it go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I immediately sought out Pulp Fiction after seeing Reservoir Dogs. I know that. I was like, this guy has another movie? And then later got to Jackie Brown because at that point, that was all he had was, yeah, those three movies. It was 01. So, yeah. And I found Pulp Fiction and was like, well, this is even better than Reservoir Dogs. Like, I was losing my mind. And then that was when I started thinking, oh, I want to make movies. I want to be a director because he made it seem so attainable. That's the thing
Hmm.
people, I think, forget about Tarantino is like, we like him for a lot of reasons. But one thing was he made being a director seem so doable because he didn't go to film school. He's just a guy that worked in the video store and made movies. He got to make movies, and it was all very inspiring and influential, and led me to a bunch of other stuff that I found and sought out. It was crazy how much that did. That even that DVD, I don't know, but I don't know how much still exists on that Blu-ray, but I keep that DVD just because of how much it means to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, those two movies, it was like my mind exploded. Like, if something happens and you're just like, my whole world has changed now after seeing those. As corny as that may sound, but I know how baseline basic that is for people who love movies around my age. But I mean, truly, it was like those two movies were very, very big for me. And at the time, I was like, I want to go to film school, even though Tarantino didn't go to film school. So I don't know why I went to film school
Yeah,
or
you
I
should have
tried to
worked
go to
at
film school.
Blockbuster.
Oh, I did try to get a job at the video store in my town, and they would not hire me. I was very upset. I
Oh,
tried multiple times.
that is rude. I love a lot of things about this. One, I love that you saw Reservoir Dogs first and then Pulp Fiction. That's how I saw it. I know a lot of people didn't. They saw Pulp Fiction and then had to go
Mhm.
back. And I think seeing that first film is it was different than everything else that was out there. When we got the promo tape, it didn't even have a cover or anything, and I watched it and was just like, "What is this?" And I just thought it's another indie. Like it was just an indie thriller crime thing. And then you start to notice the cast that he's assembled for the films. And then there's no way that's not going to, if you love movies, spiderweb out to these people's individual careers. And, then you get the influences, the things that now we know who this director is. And he's talked about variety of, like you said, Godard, everything. It was probably exciting when he said John Woo because you're like, he loves Mission Impossible 2 as well.
Oh, well, he keyed me in more on the other John Woo movies. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, Better Tomorrow? What is this? I gotta
Yes.
find this,
Write
and
this
like
down.
there was a bunch of stuff. I mean, that it's just I can't believe how much I got from that one DVD. It's like
I
it's just
love
crazy.
that. I love that because that's also at a time when there isn't a ton of things. I mean, some stuff's being put out on DVDs, but we were barely out of the part where we would see special features, subtitles, and you're like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah.
Interactive menu. Ooh, fun! A menu I can interact with. What? Like, but that's what it would say on the back of DVDs. And then you get this, and it's got all these bonus supplements that you can pour over. And, that's what I did as well with movies and music, is I would just like get everything out, look at everything, read everything I could on the booklets or the backs of the boxes or whatever. Yeah, that hunger. I love it. I love that. Okay, well, my prediction was Osmosis Jones, so I was pretty close.
I did
Pretty
see that in a theater.
pretty
I did see it. I kind of liked it. I kind of liked it. Gonna say it's pretty gross, but the Bill Murray zit thing will still haunt me till this
Yeah,
day.
yeah. Can't really hold
Oh,
a candle to a double Quentin Tarantino though, so
I mean,
you
it's a
know.
tough act to follow. So then after that, the doors are blown open. After that year, when I see those two movies, it's just
Right.
like, give me all the cinema. Like,
Yes, give me
like,
everything. Well, that's perfect because next we find ourselves with a 15-year-old Matt, and at 15, you can get a learner's permit. It's 2002. There's hundreds of films playing. Somehow they're releasing these, including so many huge blockbusters like Men in Black 2, Star Wars Episode 2, Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, Spider-Man. The numbers are crazy when you look at what these movies are pulling in. But will Matt be most moved to Road to Perdition or Snow Dogs? Will the Osbournes hitting TV affect his choice? Or The Wire winning an Emmy? Or Eddie Bauer releasing Spill Proof Khakis? These things all happened when you were 15. but only you can tell us, Matt. So what is your pick for this year?
I saw these facts. It's a real trip down memory lane. I don't remember the Bulletproof Khakis, but the Osbournes was big. People
Yes.
forget. I was watching that every week. So if we had gone back to like farther and we had 98 in a year,
Sure.
my choice would have been Blade. But we're in 2002,
Right.
so my choice is Blade 2, which I snuck in to see because I had to see Blade
Had
2
to.
because I was obsessed with the first Blade and
Same.
I'd waited 4 long years for Blade 2 and it was awesome and it's still
Yes.
awesome.
It's still awesome, and we know why
It's
now, but I don't know if we really knew why at the time.
Del Toro.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't know who he was. I had
right.
no idea. I was just there for Wesley Snipes' Blade. I think after the movie, I was like, "Who's this director?" Because
Hmm.
I liked him. A DVD I was obsessed with because I listened to the commentary like all the time because they're super entertaining. There's a Guillermo del Toro and a producer commentary, and then there's David Goyer and Wesley Snipes commentary,
Nice.
which is funny because the Del Toro one is very like informative and about how they made them, and then the Snipes Goyer one is like a them two just cracking up for like 2 hours and making jokes. At one point, even I think one of them says, "Oh, we're just doing a Mystery Science Theater 3000 on this movie. We're just making fun of it." Both very fun, but I was obsessed with Blade 2, and I was so happy I saw it in a theater because I somehow pulled that one off. I don't know how I snuck in, but I just was like, I have to get in this thing opening weekend. So definitely Blade 2 for '02.
Yeah, that's perfect. I saw the first one in the theater, the Bloodbath Vampire Club situation set to New Order's Confusion remix was like, I had that remix album, and to hear that in a mainstream film, I was like, what is happening right now? Because it wasn't a new single. That means that whoever was doing the soundtrack was like, this song's badass, put it in this scene. I loved it. And then the second one, I loved it, and then realized after I'd seen it that it was from the director that did The Devil's Backbone, which was one of my favorite movies I saw when I lived in Seattle. Same thing, I saw it by myself in the same theater that showed Memento, and it blew me away. And then I was like, he did an action movie? Like, I didn't know he was going to go to Hellboy and all this stuff, but it was really, really mind boggling to me. But yeah, Blade 2, excellent, excellent pick. I don't know the soundtrack for that. Did it have an amazing soundtrack like the first one?
It had some really good songs. Oh God, what I can't think of it. I can think of the songs I like in the movie. There's a scene where they're like walking into the club in slow motion that's really cool. Can't remember who
Yeah.
it's by. There's a song where they're like doing like the suiting up, gearing up sequence, which I
Yes.
feel like is
Quintessential.
yeah. I can't think of anyone who the names are, but oh, and there's Name of the Game by Crystal Method is during the
Oh,
fight scene,
yeah,
which
okay.
I love that because of that fight scene
The
because they
name of the
wow
game.
yeah, and then yeah, there's a lot. There's actually a lot of good songs on the Blade 2 soundtracks.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. I do enjoy looking up soundtracks in the evening. My wife and I will be sitting on the couch watching whatever, and we'll be like, "What was Soul Asylum's other hits?" And then you'll like just look up. Like I did that one just last night. We got 2 songs in. She's like, "I've never heard this song in my life," and I'm like, "Okay, well, sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you're like Crystal Method, and you'll know like 5 songs or something." But yeah, and then I'll be like, I did the Crow soundtrack and Judgment Night. I mean, there's a lot of ones
Yeah,
that are
these are
just like,
great soundtracks.
yeah,
Yeah.
super solid. Blade. But since you said Blade 2, I was like, you know what? That's probably tonight. Probably tonight I'm going to crack open a cold one and listen to the Blade 2 soundtrack.
Oh.
Well, my prediction was Made in Manhattan. So I missed Blade 2 by a little bit.
I love these picks you're
Thank
making.
you.
I will say I was curious to see if you, because now I know what you're doing, but I kind of was
Yes.
curious to see how nail on the head you would get because I thought a couple of these were gonna be
No.
like really obvious, but
No.
this is funnier.
Yeah.
I do appreciate your commitment to a bit. Like I think I
Thank
said on
you.
the Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Yes.
episode, I loved your what you've seen least recently. I think it was all chainsaw related movies, and I was
Yes.
like, I appreciate a good long bit that you're committed to. I love it.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. That's basically my life is committing
the
committing
long
to
running comedy bit.
yeah, I'm like, I'll plant this seed and we'll see the punchline in about 3 years. Okay, so, well, here we are. 16 years old, 2003. Things are getting serious. Matt can operate an automobile, for one thing. It's a year where we get Finding Nemo and 28 Days Later, Geely and A House of a Thousand Corpses, so many choices here. It's also a year when Skippy squeeze sticks come out. That's right, peanut butter in a finger-sized squeezable tube was released, and 50 Cent's Into Club is #1 above everything else. Proof that
Hmm.
anything's possible, I think. So, Matt, what is your 16-year-old 2003 pick?
Well, he's driving around in his Pontiac Sunfire that he just got with his driver's license, probably listening to In the Club because that song was huge.
Huge.
And going to see a movie that I was anticipating, like you would not believe, Kill Bill Volume 1.
Oh, Tarantino's back.
I set him up 2 years ago, and then I was like over the moon, crazy excited about this movie. I had an Entertainment Weekly magazine, I think, that I was just reading over and over, getting ready for the movie.
I
Because
missed
again,
that,
he's
yeah.
like listing influences and what it's going to be like, and it's a whole article about, I think, about the making of the movie. And I'm like, this sounds like the best movie I've ever made. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know at that point if they announced it was going to be 2 volumes. Or it was supposed to be one 4 hour movie.
I don't feel like it
I don't
was.
know.
I feel
I
like
think
when
he
we
knew early
first knew
on.
about it, it was just
Yeah,
Kill Bill, and then it became
that's
Kill Bill
yeah.
Volume 1, yeah.
Even the first teaser trailer just said Kill Bill, and I don't think
Ah,
there was volumes. At some point, they realized we can't release a 4 hour revenge movie in a theater, but
right.
I get it. But so Kill Bill Volume 1, which yeah, so excited about. Snuck in to see that one too. Again, don't know how to pull that off, but I was not good at being sneaky, but I somehow got in. And by myself, nobody, I did was just, I'm going to see this opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get in. And I did. And again, it was another mind blowing
Yeah.
experience. Led me to many more influences because that movie is almost more than anything else he's done. I guess both parts together are just so chock full of everything. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, I see Shaw Brothers behind you. A bunch of Shaw Brothers stuff.
Lady
De
Snowblood.
Palma. Yes, Lady Snowblood. De Palma. Who else? I mean, there's spaghetti western stuff in Volume 2.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much. There's an anime sequence, like it's just
Yeah.
I loved it. That's the point. I was like, this is incredible. Tarantino is still my king at that point. So
Yeah.
it was great. It was an amazing experience. It felt so cool going to see an R-rated movie by myself. That was something I was like really passionate about seeing, and it was very fun. So
Perfect. Third Tarantino in your teenage pick. I love it. Let's flesh out the Matt Bledsoe teenage years. Were you someone that was into, we already covered not into sports, were you into video games? Was there a type of music you were really identifying with? What else was going on for you during these first 3 years?
oh yes. Okay, this is good. So Matt Bledsoe getting slowly more confident and losing weight over those 3 years too.
Okay.
Once I got the car and I had like a summer between sophomore and junior year, so I
Mm-hmm.
was driving, I lost a bunch of weight. I came back to school, everyone's like, "Oh, Matt Bledsoe's a whole different guy now." I was never that cool. I got into
Yeah,
that
same.
middle section, I feel like, where the popular kids are friendly with you, but you're not
Mm-hmm.
part of the circle. We had a very distinct popular kids circle, and I was at least
Yeah.
friendly with them, but I was not in that bottom tier where it's life is hell. I was in a nice middle, and I didn't do any sports. Point someone told me a counselor, my mom was like, "You got to get involved in these for college because you do nothing." you, my
Oh,
grades were good.
nice.
I was an honor student. My grades were good, but I didn't do any extra activities. Like someone signed me up to be on the tech team for drama club for like one semester. I
Like
wasn't into
running a
that. I wasn't
board
good
and
at it.
lights or.
No, I didn't get that responsibility. I was like pulling curtains or something. I
Okay.
was like given very little responsibility in the drama club.
Curtains.
And I quit after like one semester. I was like, I don't want to do this. And
Yeah.
then I was too busy watching movies and playing video games. I was
Yeah,
a
okay.
very screen obsessed child from a very young age. And yeah, I was talking recently, I think. Oh, it was my friend Anthony King about summer camp movies on my show.
Yes.
And I talked about how did not want to go to a summer camp because my
No,
ideal
same.
summer was staying at home, going to the pool, playing GTA Vice City all day on my PlayStation, watching TV. I was watching a lot of Kids in the Hall and SNL during the day,
Yes.
watching Howard Stern at night, which I've been watching, staying up late to watch Conan O'Brien.
Yep.
I was always a screen kid. I felt like I was just into games, into movies. Somehow I thought got kind of funny. I don't know. I was obsessed with comedy too. I was obsessed with SNL. Like I said, SNL and Kids in the Hall and like Conan. I was like, if I can be funny, I was like, I can do that.
There it is.
People will like me. That's the trick. And I remember always hearing Chris Farley, I think, because I was a large boy. And he was like, I think to avoid getting picked on, basically, you just got to get ahead of the jokes and make people laugh. So I felt like I was always trying to do comedy. And I thought at one point, as a young teenager, I was like, I could be on SNL one day. I could be a cast member,
Yeah.
not knowing how difficult that is. Weirdly enough, I graduated with a future SNL cast member named Jay Farrow.
Oh.
Literally went to my high school, graduated the same year. We knew each other since second grade.
Whoa.
Crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. I told that story on the Hackers episode of my podcast. But
Oh, all I
he
remember is Uber Angel
you
from that episode.
well, Uber Angel kind of took everything else. But yeah, I mean, teenage Matt for those years was kind of lazy. And I was into music a little bit. I was listening to all the you mentioned Limp Bizkit earlier. Oh my god, I was so into like the angry aggro new metal. Like it was all about Korn and
Yeah.
Limp Bizkit and
Yeah.
Linkin Park. But then I was also into like rap like Eminem and DMX,
Uh-huh.
Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, stuff I probably shouldn't be listening to, but what are you gonna
But
do?
also, everything you just listed was what was on the radio and MTV, which was inescapable
It's
at that time. I mean, it was
crazy.
everywhere. It's like when they weren't playing the videos, they had them like come on TRL and stuff. They're like, here's Marshall Mathers, and he'd waddle in looking miserable, and they'd have him throw to like a Britney Spears video, and I was watching that. It was just
Yeah.
what you did.
That TRL was huge. I was watching it too, and
Yeah.
it was such a bizarre time. I try to explain to people, I think younger than me, or like just tell people who weren't watching, like, yeah, it was a time where you could boy bands, Britney
Yes.
Spears, Christina Aguilera, but then also mixing with like Korn and Limp Bizkit and Eminem, and it made no sense. And it'd be
Yeah.
like one day Backstreet Boys #1, the next day Korn's #1. And
Yeah.
it's so weird they coexisted at the same time. Yeah, and of course I couldn't say I liked any of those songs, many of those pop, artists. I had to be too cool, but I'm like, this Backstreet Boys song is kind of catchy, but I can't tell anyone. But
Yeah.
I got to keep my hardcore demeanor. No, I just like I
Street.
think I thought
Got to keep your street cred. Matt
got my
Bledsoe's
street
street
cred
cred.
in my Pontiac Sunfire. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I liked all that stuff that was popular, that kind of new metal and
Yeah.
rap and all that. Yeah, I don't know. I just I always felt like kind of just I was likable and I got through the middle and I just wanted to be in the middle. I didn't want to be popular. I didn't want to be getting garbage thrown at me at school. It was
Sure.
like I just want to exist in this nice middle area. People like me and I'm friendly. And I was so obsessed with movies. I was reading Roger Ebert's great movie book somewhere in that time. I got those for Christmas. And he was another guy that was, again, yeah, I'm a weird child. I
I
was like, get
hope
me.
there's a photo of you at Christmas holding up one of those books. Tell me that that
No,
exists.
there's not. I can't tell the story, but what's so funny is I just was going through old photos I had, and my family was constantly giving me crap because I had a huge crush on Britney Spears, and it was a running
That's like
joke.
a huge pop singer. What's there
Well,
to
I know,
tease
but
about that?
I was so in love with her, and they were giving me. I think they thought it was funny. They were like, "Oh, you probably like her music," and I was like, "No, no, I just like her. I don't." Some catchy songs, I'll admit. But I just found a photo. I was going through old photos. I think I took this one specifically to burn for my mom. It's me holding a Britney Spears calendar, sitting
Oh
on a
man.
fireplace at Christmas because it was like a running joke for them to buy me a Britney Spears
Yeah.
calendar for like 3 or 4 years in a row. So those
Ah.
photos in the Roger books don't exist, but the Britney Spears calendar photo exists for now until I destroy it.
If we can get a Britney Spears calendar to you for Christmas, can we get a recreation of that photo?
I don't know. I'd almost rather just share the photo I have,
Okay, okay.
and I don't know if I could do it again. That photo can't exist. Yeah, I mean, it was. I had a Britney Spears poster on my wall. Like I was in love with her.
Wow.
Yeah, I was really
I
obsessed.
love the idea of you listening to Freak on a Leash in front of a Britney Spears poster.
I was like a walking, breathing TRL in my room.
Yeah, it's
It's like
very
I'm listening to
complex.
Korn and Linkin Park, and I'm like, I love you, Brittany. Oh boy, I've said too much on this podcast. This
Well,
is
no,
all
no,
going to come
no.
back to haunt
This
me.
is a place without judgment. We're talking about the teen years. I mean, lots of people are trying stuff on. I knew a guy who was like a different person every week for a while in the teen years. He was all decked out in snowboard gear, which is weird because we didn't have snow around, but he was like, that's what he was into. And then the next time he was like a rave DJ, and it's just like, you're just trying on different things. Be like, does this fit? Or am I into this? Or I'll read a little bit about this or buy this album, but that doesn't mean I'm all Natalie Merchant. I just liked the one single. It's just like different for everybody. So this is a judgment-free place. My pick for you for this year
Oh, yeah.
was the SPP pick, and I said Pulp Fiction, but it's because you had asked via message, and so
Yes.
I was like, 2003, I think, is when he saw maybe Pulp Fiction, and so that's when I was throwing it out there. But we
Ah,
already covered it, so I didn't have a
okay.
silly,
You were very
silly.
close. It's still a Tarantino movie.
That's right. All right. Well, 2004. Matt's 17. He can almost vote in a political fashion, but he can vote on what he sees in a theater. Options? Well, let's take a look. Saw, Napoleon Dynamite, Fat Albert, Jersey Girl, and Welcome to Mooseport all played in theaters this year. Will A Dark Day affect his selection as Friends ends its 10-year run and starts a Joey spinoff nobody asked for? Will the death of Rodney Dangerfield cause Matt to constantly watch Ladybugs this year? It's hard to say, but let's find out when Matt tells us his pick for 2004 at the age of 17.
You just said so much. I'm ready to take it all in. It's like I didn't know Ryan Dangerfield died that long ago. I thought he lived longer than that. Those movies were I forgot they all came out in '04. I'm shocked. I'm like those what? I forgot what else you already said. But yeah, that was so much.
Welcome to Mooseport is the good.
Yeah, the movie that made Gene Hackman retire from acting.
Yeah.
I've never seen it, but I've heard nothing but bad things.
More like
Oh,
farewell to Mooseport, thank you very much.
this was the hardest year. I have 4 possible picks that
Woo!
I'm still looking at on my plate.
And I wonder, and I'm interested since this is the first ever of the Screen Teens, do you feel like it's because of the quality of the films that you were interested in? Do you think it's relative to your age and how much of a film lover you were? Or do you feel like it's just the luck of the draw that these 4 fantastic films came out at the same time?
Think it's just kind of luck of the draw because
Okay.
when I Googled it, most time it was easy. One popped up
Hmm.
and I was that's it. When I was looking at '04, I was like, oh shit, all 4 of these could easily be my answer. And I don't know how to parse out which is most important. Okay. I think because we've already talked about one thing that's similar to one of them.
Hmm.
One thing I think is going to come up next year, or director's going to come up next year, so I'll
Okay.
save that one. I'm going to talk about, I'll tell you the other ones, but my pick is going to be Collateral, Michael Mann's Collateral,
Okay.
which
I
is,
haven't seen it.
you have not seen Collateral. It's very good.
I
It's very, very
know. It's what
good.
I hear. I've heard you mention it. I think you talked about it on a podcast, couldn't tell you which one. And I was like, I gotta
I do a lot of
see
that.
Collateral. This is another Tom Cruise joint, correct?
It's another Tom Cruise joint.
Okay.
I did a Shock and All with Lindsay. We did
That's what it was.
Walking the Edge. Have you seen that?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Okay. And we did Collateral. And
That's what it was. Yeah.
yes, it's really good. Michael Mann, pretty sure the first Michael Mann movie I saw in theaters. I think it would have had to been. And I thought it just like starting off, I thought it looked really cool. He was using that digital photography, then like
Right.
it really hadn't been used much or seen much yet. I'm really into film at this point. Really entering my
Yeah,
cinephile kind of
17. Yep.
douchey a little bit, but I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. The photography is so different in Collateral. I think Tom Cruise is excellent in the movie. Jamie Foxx is great. And it's funny because I randomly went to go see it with like my mom, my stepsister, and my little sister, which is not usually a group that goes to movies together, let alone
You picked it though,
Collateral.
right?
Yeah, like my sister's younger than me. I'm sure she just was like, why am I here? My mom, I don't know why she would, because she doesn't like action movies or guns or violence of any kind. And then I think maybe she just liked Tom Cruise and thought it's not uber violent, but it's decently violent. I think she was a little shocked, like, oh, it's a little much. I was loving it. I was like, this is great. And it was just like one of those things where I'm like, I got to watch more Michael Mann movies. I really like this Collateral movie. So it was a big deal for that. I think I felt like it influenced me of like the kind of movies I thought I could make at that time. In '04, when I was 17, I pretty much had decided I want to go to some film school for college, which would be the next year in '05. So I was really felt like I was looking at things to be like, oh, maybe I can make a movie like
Yes,
that.
yeah.
Collateral was right up my alley in that kind of way. So I'll pick that'll be my main pick. If my 3 other ones, if you want to hear them really
Okay,
quickly,
so Collateral's the one, but let's hear
it's the
the
one
others.
for '04.
Yeah.
These are the 3 other possibilities. Kill Bill Volume 2, because I just talked about Volume 1. I thought it'd
Sure.
be boring to say Volume 2, but that was a big deal, again, to see that finish up. And I will tell you a funny story. I took a girl I had like just started dating, and it was one of those weird high school relationships where it's like people almost put you together. You know what I mean? Do you have like
Oh,
friends who like
yeah.
pressure you to date and then it kind of push you into a thing? And I wasn't that into This
Hmm.
sounds really bad. So I wanted to go see it. And I was like, if you want to go, you can go. But I didn't really, I was like, I
Nice.
don't think she wanted to. So I pushed her and I didn't, because I didn't like her that much. This sounds so mean. I didn't mean like this, but I took her and I was like, if she likes it, she likes it. I'm going to see the movie. And she walked out at one point. I think it's the part where, I know what part it was. Uma Thurman steps on Gail Hannah's eyeball
Yeah.
and she left the theater. And I was like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I can't miss this. And I guess kind of douchey at 17. I don't know. But I think I went, she either came back a few minutes later. I went to go find her and I brought her back in. But she was very upset with me and hated the movie. And it didn't work out, obviously.
Sure.
So that was fun, I guess. And then Spider Man 2 was huge. At that
Hmm.
point, I thought it was like, this is one of the best superheroes I've ever seen, but not hugely influential to me. I just love the movie. I think it's a great movie.
Sure, yeah.
And the one that was really tough, my boy Tony Scott, Man on Fire, very close. I left that one off because he's gonna come up again. But
Oh,
yeah, so
interesting.
I was like, I'll go with Collateral Michael Mann because that was big for me for Michael Mann. But and again, we saw mom in the theater. My mom was petrified of the violence in Man on Fire because he's cutting off fingers.
Yeah.
It's very violent.
Yeah.
But I again loved it. I was eating it up, and I thought this is so great, and started my Tony Scott obsession. I would say so. A big year, '04, very big year. Those movies.
Yeah, I think I've shared it on the podcast. It's hard to say. Maybe I haven't, but I was a huge Cronenberg fan, and I know you've been covering some Cronenberg films on Film Feast or Schlock and Awe. I forget which one now. I listen to everyone's
Was Film
podcast so
Feast.
much
Yeah,
it's
no,
like a big stew in
they
my
all
head.
bleed together.
Oh,
Me and Carmelita, yeah, we talked about Crash and talked about the whole
yes.
Cronenberg. So yeah,
Yes. And I've always used movies to relate to people, and I'm like, oh, if you want to know me, let's like, oh, I'll show you this movie. It's like a good shorthand. And I was in a relationship, and I showed her my VHS of Dead Ringers, and
Oh God.
I was super into it. And she went out on the porch when it ended. They didn't say a word, just left, sat on the porch. And I was like, I don't know what she's doing out there. She doesn't smoke or anything. So I went out there, and she was just crying, like sobbing. And I was like, what's going on? And she just looked at me and was like, why would you show that to me? And then I realized we were different people, very different people. Didn't work out. But yeah, sometimes movies can bring people together, and it can also
Pull them
pull them
apart.
apart.
I've gotten much better about that over the years. I like that was a big thing for me when I was younger. I was very bullheaded about movies I really liked. I really wanted girls to watch the ones I liked and like them. I took it really personally if they didn't like them.
Oh, yeah.
Completely got over that. I was like, that's really dumb. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to force anybody to watch something I don't think they would like. I know someone's taste, and like girlfriend now, I mean, there's stuff I know I would not show her because she would probably hate it. So I'm not going to force her to watch it. So yeah, but when I was younger, I was like, you got to watch this Tarantino movie. You should like it. It's great. I'm trying to explain. This is cinema. Such a douche.
Listen to
Anyway,
what he says about Madonna here. You're gonna love it.
you're gonna love it, I tell you.
Well, my pick for this year was Ella Enchanted. So, not.
never, never seen it.
Ah.
Sounds delightful.
Well, I bet it was what your little sister wished she was watching instead of Collateral.
And yeah, I think she might set mine on fire too. She probably didn't want to see that either.
She's like, I'll take that Fat Albert movie. I'm serious.
I forgot that came out in '04. That's insane. I forgot that we almost existed too.
Yeah, time is bizarre. And the older you get, the weirder it gets to be like, oh, that
Yes.
was just like last year, wasn't it? 20 years ago. Where did this.
No,
What?
I don't like it.
Oh, yeah. It gets worse. All right. Well, the year is 2005. Matt can go into an adult bookstore. He can buy cigarettes. His tastes are no doubt maturing. The radio is blasting Fall Out Boy, the Gorillaz, and Nickelback, for better or worse. The theaters are packed full of people watching The Devil's Rejects, Dukes of Hazzard, Doom, and Hitch. However, it's not all gravy as Destiny's Child and Blink-182 break up, as well as Brad and Jennifer. Oh, they just got married! Will such sadness damper an 18-year-old Matt's picks? We'll find out right now from Matt's pick from this year.
No, Matt was not dampened by any of this news. '05, one of my best years ever, I think, because I
Oh,
graduated high
right.
school. It's
Yes.
a great year. I don't like to be one of those people I think you always hear like the sad guy who wishes he was still in high school. It's like a jock who wears his Letterman's
It's
jacket.
always
He's like
a jock.
35.
Yeah.
No. The last half of senior year, especially, was such a cakewalk. It was like I was barely even going to school because I basically got all my credits done.
Uh-huh.
I was taking only 2 classes a day. I mean, that was allowed. It wasn't like I was skipping. And I was just living the best life. I had no responsibilities. School was a breeze. I was getting ready to go to college in the fall. I was like, everything was just chef's kiss. It was just so, life's never been so easy since. That's the only thing I miss. And then summer, I'm getting ready to go to college. I'm like, I'm going to film school. I'm going to make movies. I had 2 picks. I'm going to go with the one I think influenced me more, which is Domino by Tony Scott.
There's the Tony Scott.
There's the Tony Scott. There you go. It had to be here. I almost went Man on Fire, but I literally saw Domino that fall when I was at UNC Wilmington, North Carolina, and went to go see it by myself because I was very homesick and very lonely down there. UNC Wilmington was weird because it felt like every kid came from the same high school, so they all knew each other, it felt like.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it felt like. And I'm like, did you all go to the same high school and you're all here now? It was very weird. And I just didn't gel with those people. I didn't party at all. I didn't drink. And I just was not doing it. So I was going to see movies by myself, which I still like to do. But I saw Domino by myself. And I was like, this is the kind of stuff I want to make. Like I was going and yelling
Yes.
people on campus. I'm like, this is a movie. Like I just like grab people by the shoulders. I'm like, you got to see this crazy thing. Because I had never seen anything like Domino. Man on Fire, I guess, kind of close. It's also
Yeah.
Tony Scott, obviously. It was to me so experimental and different and mind blowing. And I was like, holy shit, like this guy is really doing something unique and different. I'm like, this is so inspiring, especially at the time. Nobody cared. It bombed.
Yeah.
Like, the other kids in the film program didn't seem to care. The film program was weird too. Started going on a tangent, but at this school, I took a very basic, I think it was like 101 film introduction
Mhm.
class. And half the kids there didn't care and were just taking the class, take the class. And then the other half of the kids were like super pretentious, artsy film
Yeah.
kids. And I always felt like I was in this weird middle ground where I was into more, I don't know what the word, trashy or kind of like action type stuff. They all wanted to make their own. Oh God, what would make indie film at the time? Just like a quieter little indie movie.
Garden
And I'm like, I want to
State.
make. Oh God, I surprised. Oh my God, I didn't mention Garden State for '04. That was a big one. That
Yeah.
was another big one. Sought that out. Had to drive 30, 40 minutes away from my house to find that movie because I'd seen the trailer and I was like, what's that movie? That was a big one. But sorry to get ahead of myself. But yeah, they want to make stuff like that,
Yeah.
which is fine, But I was like, I want to make Tarantino type movies or big action movies and blow stuff up and shoot guns. And I felt like nobody was really into that. They wanted to make highbrow type stuff, or people in the class just didn't. I would ask them questions and they're like, I've never seen anything by Michael Mann, or
Sure.
I've seen like one Tarantino movie. And I'm like, one Tarantino movie? How have you only seen Pulp Fiction? It was weird. I was like a man with no country. It was like I was in this weird in between state where I was trying to find somebody who was in the same stuff I was, and I could not find that person. And Domino's like a perfect encapsulation of that because I felt like at the time, especially because it bombed, nobody was talking about it. Nobody else had seen it for years. I think it's finally getting a reputation now. No one seemed to care about it. And I thought it was this amazing movie. So Domino's my pick. My almost other pick was Sin City by Robert
Sure.
Rodriguez,
Yeah. Yeah.
who has shockingly not made a appearance on this list. I could have mentioned Once Upon a Time in Mexico because that was also big in '03 to sneak into
Hmm.
theater and see that one. But a little bit of a letdown, that movie. I still like it, but
Same. Yeah.
But Sin City was very cool. It was very different. I didn't see anything like that either. But no, I got to go Tony Scott and Domino. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. I also studied film in school, and it's it was one of the worst things I think for me because I thought movies were the most exciting thing ever. I love visual storytelling. I love the world developments, the way you can create different languages and really simply tell rules of like, this is what this universe is that you're in. I just think it's fantastic. And then I would hear people suck all the life out of these conversations and talk like only about specific directors in these grandiose ways, but then Henenlotter or somebody wouldn't get anything. And I'm like, well, this person's doing these crazy inventive things with very little budget, but they're not looked in the same, the whole art house thing. And like, so that I made a conscious effort that a lot of stuff I just wouldn't ever probably be talking about on the podcast just because one, I'm not that articulate unless I would be quoting some heady person's thing about French New Wave or something, but it's honestly not how my brain works. And so it's just like, I'm not going to put on airs, I'm not going to pretend. And also, I'd rather listen to someone talk about Domino than Seventh Seal or whatever it is that I've already heard so much about. So, and then, oh, get this. So, the one of the last film classes I ever took, when I finally was just like, I got to get out of college, I slid all my credits over and I said, what can I get? And then I just left. I graduated.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I had a major in women's studies and a minor in film. So that's what I could
There you
do.
go.
I could show movies at a shelter, I guess. I don't know. But I took this horror film class, and the lady that was teaching it was like, I'm going to show you the best horror movie of all time. And
Oh, I
I
can't
was
wait to hear what
like,
this is.
oh, me too. I love horror films. I can't wait to. I mean, which thing? And she's like, this is quintessentially the best horror film of all time. And I was like, in your opinion? And she's like, I'm teaching the class. This is the one of all time.
Okay.
And I was like, already a little on the rocks with this teacher. And that film was Hannibal.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's the
And
correct response.
all the things that went through my brain, Hannibal
No,
did not even
it
cross the
shouldn't
wow.
in anyone's mind. And I laughed out loud, wasn't trying to be a jerk, but
Oh.
that response you had was the exact right response. You're just like, no, no. I saw that in the theater and was like, this is not great. I mean, since then, I think you can find enjoyment in it, but I was really put off by this film. And the fact that this was the greatest horror
I mean,
movie
I
of
mean, yeah,
all
to make a
time.
declarative statement like that, such a strong statement is like this better be
Yeah.
good, It better be even if I don't think it's the best, at least I should like know what's in the conversation,
Oh
like
my
The Exorcist or
gosh. Yeah.
something. Wouldn't Hannibal like just come out recently too? Like
Yeah.
he wouldn't have been that old. Like,
Yeah.
wow, that's bananas.
It
That's
was
like
insane. It was
that's so
unbelievable. I barely passed that class because I just stuck to my. I was like, no, we're going to go to the mat on this one because this is nowhere near the conversation you're putting
wow.
it at the top of.
No. And to say just another thing about that whole experience, I joked about it on my show before. I was there for one semester, like the fall
Yeah.
of '05, and I was out because I realized this industry was not for me
Yeah.
because it's a nomadic lifestyle. It's a very hard lifestyle.
Hmm.
I don't like that. I don't like to be, I'm a homebody. I don't be with my family. I was very homesick because I was 5 hours away from home. I was driving home like every weekend. So I just bailed. I was like, this is not for me. And our professor was weird too for the film class I had. Nice enough guy, but he only wanted to talk about documentaries, which is they're a fine,
Oh,
they're great. Documentaries are
sure.
great. But I was like, this is not just a documentary class. It's supposed to be just about all kinds of film. And I think he thought they were such a superior art form to narrative movies. And I
Yeah.
feel like he said that as much a couple times. And I'm like, whoa, 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 buddy. I do not agree. He had a
Yeah.
weird thing about, I think because he was a documentary filmmaker
Oh,
and he
this
was
checks out
really
then.
I
Yes.
mean, I mean, I think he said that. It's all kind of a blur. I remember being really annoyed because I'm like, you don't got to shit on narrative movies like this, and I'm like, can we talk about some other stuff? Yeah, it was really weird. It was not a great film class.
He's like, another thing about March of the Penguins is like, wait, what? We're back to that again?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, that was a weird time. But Domino is wonderful, as I talked about Unscottable on my show.
yes.
Like we sang the praises of Domino. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's a great time to plug that you have gone through all of the films of Tony Scott.
The plan is to have the last episode out on August 19th, which when I was plotting these out, I was going month by month, dropping one a month. When I kind of looked at how the calendar was going to fall, I was like, oh, that's so weird. The last episode of Unscottable is going to fall in August, and Tony Scott passed away in August 2012.
Oh,
So it's the
whoa.
10-year anniversary of his passing.
Whoa.
So August 19th, I think, is my plan to put the last episode. I couldn't think of a better way to kind of honor him and end the whole thing. I was like, it just seems weirdly fitting. I didn't plan it to end then. It just kind of worked out. And I was like, this is too weird a coincidence. I really need to just I'm just going to end it there. It's the perfect way to end it. And yeah, so it'll be wrapping up soon. So I'm very sad about it actually. I don't want it to stop, but it has to, sadly, very
Yeah,
sadly. So mostly because I have no more Tony Scott movies to watch or talk about. So
that's
that's
it.
always a bummer. And so, but it's been great. I mean, I keep telling people, I don't think I'm going to do another director series just because I don't know. I don't know who to pick. And then it's
Yeah,
like, it's a commitment. I like to fly by seat my pants too. And like, even to have one thing I have to do every month, I'm like, oh, I just want to, even though I love doing it,
right.
I just kind of like don't like being pinned down by anything. I just want to completely make the schedule up on the fly and just do whatever. So I don't know. Maybe one day down the road I'll do another director series. But right now I'm just gonna leave it at Unscottable, which I'm very happy with, and be done with it.
Yeah,
So
I highly recommend people, if you haven't heard all of those episodes, go back and listen to them. Domino being one of them, and Collateral as well. So, two films we've covered in this episode. Is Collateral
well,
one?
yeah, Collateral was with Lindsay on Schlockenow, and it's Michael Mann, but
That's
it's
Michael
okay.
Mann.
Yeah.
Wait, what was, didn't we cover just another Tony Scott, or am I just.
I mentioned Man on Fire.
Man
It
on
came out the same
Fire.
year as
Okay.
Collateral. It's confusing. I
Okay.
understand.
Nope.
I said a lot of things, Dirk. I apologize. I've been talking like
Oh, I get Ridley Scott mixed up. I said that one time when I was talking to you
understand.
about Tony Scott, and I was like, God damn, can I not keep any of these correct? So embarrassing, but nobody's
We've said a
perfect.
lot very quickly. It's okay. So yeah.
My pick was not Domino. It was Diary of a Mad Black Woman, which was not what you chose. So I was wrong again at what you were into when you were 18.
Oh.
Well, here we are. The year is 2006. Matt's final teen year. Sure, Happy Feet, Over the Hedge, and Click come out in theaters, but so does Little Man, Aragon, and Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties. A lot to choose from. But also, James Blunt releases You're Beautiful, Niles Barkley does Crazy, and Trace Adkins sings Honky Tonk Badonkadonk. Will any of this color Matt's final choice? We'll hear right now as Matt tells us his final pick for his final teen year. Matt, what is your selection?
Oh boy, I wish you had not reminded me of Honky Tonk Badonka Donk,
It's going to be playing in your
a
head when you
song
lay
I've
down to
been
go to
haunted
bed.
by. I had an ex. I sorry to go on. I had an ex girlfriend who was big into country, and I'm sorry that everyone likes it. I cannot stand country music
Sure, same.
at all, and I was forced to listen to it. And that song in particular, I thought was god awful. Like
It's poetry. A honky
they,
tonk badunka dunk.
it was kind of amusing the first time. After a while,
Half
I
of
couldn't
it.
do it. Okay, so this one kind of feel like I'm ending on a whimper because I had my
Interesting.
pick, and then I realized I didn't see it in a theater. I did see it the same year that it came
Mmm.
out. I saw it the same year it came out, but I saw it on DVD later.
You can mention it,
Okay,
but what's your pick?
I'll do two because why
Yeah.
not? We're here. So the one that I was going to mention that I did not see in a theater, but I did see it that year on DVD was Running Scared with Paul Walker,
Oh,
which I've
sure. Yeah.
brought up many times because I haven't shut about it since I've seen it. I'm not stopped talking about it because I remember so distinctly this viewing was so memorable. I rented it on a whim from Redbox or something with a movie that I watched first that I thought was really bad called Ultraviolet with
Yes.
Mila
Terrible.
Jovovich.
Yeah. Awful.
I tried to
That's
rewatch
the
it a
guy that
couple
did
years ago,
Equilibrium, too, I think.
and I didn't like that either. And I'm sorry.
Oh,
I know we
yeah.
have some friends
What?
that like that movie, and I could not. I thought
Terrible.
it would have that movie would have been totally my thing at like 14 or 15.
Right,
But
sure.
I watched it last year for the first time, and I couldn't get into it. I feel bad 'cause I know I think Mike Scott, our friend, is a fan of it, I
Oh
think, but
no, I'm sorry, Mike. That's like what you like.
Mike, oh no, definitely like what you like. I just couldn't get into it. And then I had not seen Equilibrium when I saw Ultraviolet, and I thought it was very bad. I tried to watch it a couple years ago to see if it was bad as I remembered, and I turned off within 10 minutes. I was like, oh yeah, no, this is still bad. So that happened. And then middle of the night, because this time I was keeping really weird hours. I feel like I was up all night. I put on Running Scared. I was like, Paul Walker, the guy from Fast and the Furious, what's this going to be? It comes in so hot. It's
Yeah,
so violent. And I was like, what is this movie? It's very good all the way through. There's an insane sequence in the middle that literally had me. I was like laying down on the couch, and it was one of those things where I'm like, what? And I'm going up. I'm like, my head's up.
right.
I'm sitting up. And by the end, I'm standing up. By the end, I'm like, what in the hell? And I'm like, cheering on what happens in the scene. If people have seen the movie, I think they know what I'm talking about. It involves like two creepy
Yeah.
kidnappers and her that whole sequence with her, and she finds these two people. Completely up out of my chair, cheering at like 2 in the morning or whatever it was. And I was like, this movie's great. And no one talks about it. Again, it bombed in theaters, and
Yeah.
that was my pick. So I caught it later. A movie I do also support that I don't think people like that much is Silent Hill, based on the video game, which
Oh
came out in
yeah.
'06. I really like this movie. It is very hardcore. It's not what I expected. Fairly creepy. It's very violent.
Yeah.
There was some stuff that completely shocked me and my friends we saw in the theater. Like we were just aghast at like some of the things that were happening. I think it's very stylish, and I just have thought this is kind of underrated all these years. I think it's a cool movie. It looks very cool. It's got this cool vibe to it. The games are some of the creepiest things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
I can't even
sure.
play them. I like watch people play them and I still get
Yeah.
freaked out. The movie captures that decently, I think. It's not as scary, but I remember I expected nothing because video game movies have a bad reputation anyway.
Yeah.
And I went into this like, all right, I'll see the Silent Hill movie. And I really liked it. So those are my double picks for '06. I think
That's
two
awesome.
underrated movies.
Yeah, I feel the same way about Silent Hill. I wasn't a huge Resident Evil fan for those movies. I watched all of them, but I watched all the Underworld movies. So, I just kind of commit to these things, I guess. But I thought both the Silent Hill movies I thought were very fun, and I loved the way the worlds transition with the ash peeling down and stuff. It
The
looked really cool.
sirens and
Yeah, I just thought they
yeah.
did a great job with that world building and the fog and kind of nightmare logic stuff. And the tone of it, I think, fit really well. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, because I would say '06 was kind of a weird year for me. I think I felt a little burned by the film school experience, and I
Mm-hmm.
kind of felt like I wasn't a film guy anymore. And I kind of felt like I came back down to earth on like I wasn't following all this stuff and reading all this stuff. I still like movies, obviously, but I kind of felt like I didn't have the passion for it quite as much after
Mm-hmm.
that. So yeah, I'm kind of glad we're stopping here because it would have gotten sad for a few years. It took me years to really get back into it. It might almost been 10 years. It really was. I started a job where I could listen to podcasts. I started finding like movie podcasts,
Mm.
and I found F This Movie, which I know we're fans of. And that really got me back into movie. That was like 2015. So it took almost like 10 years to really feel like, oh yeah, I remember I love movies. What am I doing? I've been kind of like spinning my wheels for the past 10 years. I was more into like music and video games. I felt like I kept having a thing. I'm like, oh, I'm really into music, and then I'm into video games. And I got into like football, which I was never a sports
Football.
guy. I know, sorry, Dirk. I'm sorry to disappoint you. But
Ah,
I did get into like fantasy football and just watching football. And I think because my friends were all into it and I was watching sports more. But
I
then
don't like
when
this chapter. We stopped. We
I'm
we stopped at
I'm
19.
sorry. This is extra. This is bonus. But then no, I came back around. And then it was really rediscovering like a first love again. I was like, oh yeah, I love movies. What am I doing? And now I host a movie podcast. It all came full circle somehow. It all came back around.
That's
So
so funny because we're very similar in that way. I didn't think I was going to make movies, but I thought I was going to do acting and that sort of stuff because I very much enjoyed being somebody else. Like it was just like I was not cool with the cards I was dealt. So if I was being somebody else, life was a lot easier. And improv and things like that. If you're living in that moment, you can't be hypercritical of yourself because you have to react to what these other people are doing.
mhm.
And then I was in a film, I can't say what it was because I walked off the set, but
Oh.
I got a feeling for what that life was like. And like you were talking about with the nomadic life of a director, what acting is in film capacity is very different than the theater, where you're kind of part of a group that's doing something collectively. And in that, you're very much just like a hired gun. It's just you solo. The other people don't like you or care about you.
Uh-huh.
The hair and makeup can be the same way.
Oh.
Donald Sutherland can be the same way. And so I was just like, fuck this. This is not for me. And so I just stopped paying attention to acting. which was kind of what I was into in the movies and everything, and then taking film stuff, and then I was like, that's not going to be the thing. But I didn't realize I still related to the world basically through movies. I would still go see movies, and that's what I guess I was talking to people about, but I just didn't listen to what I was talking about. And then it was when my friend JL literally gave me that book of VHS cover art where I was like, oh, this is like my childhood. And then it was like unlocking a door and going through the whatever, the coat closet in Narnia or whatever. I was just like, oh my gosh, this really matters to me. This means a lot to me. And, now through the podcast, I've met so many amazing people like yourself where I'm just like, I wouldn't know these people if I didn't
Yeah.
open up and talk about movies. So it's like, oh, wow, movies have actually given me a lot. And there was just a period of my life where I just wasn't even talking about it really. Or I was,
Yeah.
but it was to people that were like, why are you talking to me about this? Like, I'd be,
Yeah, it's like nobody cared when I was talking about it. They're like, I don't know, man. I remember getting like a huge argument with somebody about Indiana Jones and Temple of the Crystal Skull, and I remember
oh,
like
God.
I feel like I just it wasn't not the Temple of the Crystal Skull. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah, the Crystal Skull movie.
Yeah.
And I was so angry, and then one of the guys in our group was just like, "Who cares, man? It's just movies." And I feel like that like outraged me,
You're like,
and I was like, "It's just a
Shia
fun."
LaBeouf was swinging on vines with monkeys. You're cool with that?
He's like, "It's just a fun movie," and I'm like, "Ah, it should be better." And I
Yeah.
it was just one of those things where I'm like, I can't explain to people that, just aren't as into it. I think I almost felt like I failed the whole thing too. So that was a little bitter, I
Same.
think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what's funny? I don't remember how the sequence went, but I know because I was so into reading Roger Ebert's reviews and his great movie books
Mm.
that I was like, I want to be a film critic. I think that was my backup plan if direction didn't work out. When that was like a viable career choice, I was
Sure.
like, I'll be the critic for my local newspaper. This was only 15-ish years ago. Think how insane that would be now if a child was like, I want to write for the local paper. Like that sounds so old fashioned, I feel like. I thought at the time, I was like, when our old critic passes away, I'll take his spot. And that was 15 plus years ago. And that guy just died this year, our local critic.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
but I never agree with that man
Time to
either.
make your
Nice
move.
man. He seemed like a very nice man, but I would read his reviews and get so tell my mom like this guy's know what he's talking about. He's an idiot. He hated Blade 2. What kind of guy was
Oh,
this?
yeah.
Like, so I feel like critic was my backup. So I feel like, and I think we know now. I follow people on Twitter that I don't think critic is like a viable
Right.
career option, or I
Yeah.
don't. They get paid like $20 an article or something. I may be wrong. I don't know. But your freelance work, it's not as glamorous as being Roger Ebert or,
Mm-hmm.
these kind of critics. But this kind of scratches the itch that I feel like I had, which was like, I just need to talk about movies. I think knowing myself now, I don't think I needed to make movies. I just need to talk about movies. I'm not a great writer. I'm not a terrible writer, but this is my format. So
Yeah.
thank God podcast came along. Because, yes, again, I met people like you and all of our friends. And I'm like, this is what I needed the whole time. Like, I didn't need to
Yeah.
make movies or write about them. I just need to talk to people that love movies as much as I do. And it's been very fulfilling. So, and this was so much fun. This was a great exercise, I thought.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. That was the whole goal. My final selection was my super ex-girlfriend.
All movies I forgot even existed for the
Yeah.
most part.
Same.
Oh, you know which one I think we skipped over? My 2001, my sleepover pick.
Yeah.
That was the one I said was this movie's weird because it had a very long. Donnie Darko was the one I was going to pick
Oh,
for '01 because it played for festivals and
yeah.
limited release, and that was a movie that was like huge finding. I remember other kids my age were like, "Have you heard of Donnie Darko?" It was like whispered about, it was like because no one saw it in the theater. It was like one of
I
those weird.
did.
Oh, well, you were one of the lucky ones, I think. In my little suburban town, a bunch of teenagers who it was like a thing. There was two movies like this. This and the Boondock Saints got
Oh, yeah.
passed around on DVD. Like, have you heard about this movie? It was something no one saw in a theater for the most part. And they were like, you got to see this weird movie. And like, I remember me and my friend were like, whoa, Johnny Darko's like the smartest, most mind I've ever seen. Friend was on like AOL rooms, if that really takes you that
Yeah.
time, like looking up theories about Donnie Darko and sending me stuff. Oh, I think this is what's going on, Donnie Darko. And that movie was a really big deal at the time. And that was just a really cool, different
That
type of
was
movie that
2001.
it was. But
It's the
I
same
don't
year
think
as Highway, I think.
it came out at Sundance early in the year.
Well,
And then
what
it
year
got
was Bubble Boy?
that might have been the same year.
Whoa, he
Um,
had a banger, 2001. Those three movies
I
came out.
weirdly watched Bubble Boy a lot on TV. I don't know why. It was always on. It was the same year as '01. Yeah, but like
Whoa. He had that Matthew Lillard thing where he like goes to LA or whatever and does like three movies. Well, I mean, nobody saw Highway, but three movies in a year. That's pretty awesome.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, that was a big one. That felt like the first independent type movie I'd seen on my own, where I'm like, oh, this is for us, the teenagers to find the adults don't get Donnie Darko.
That's true, they didn't.
It was just, it felt special, I felt like at the time. It was like, this is weird and different. So,
So
yeah.
to recap, could you walk us through the movies that you chose, just each
Oh, dear
one?
God. Okay. 2000, Mission Impossible
There
2.
it is.
2001 was my sleepover picks with the two-hander of Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, the double punch. And 2002 was Blade 2.
Nice.
'03 was Kill Bill Volume 1.
Yep.
2004 was Collateral. 2005 was Domino. And 2006 was, I guess I'm going to say, another double pick of Running Scared and Silent Hill.
Awesome. And my selections were Dr. T and the Women, Made in Manhattan, Osmosis Jones,
Oh, yeah.
Pulp Fiction, Ella Enchanted, Diary of a Mad Black Woman, and My Super Ex-Girlfriend. There it is. Well, Matt, thank you for...
Sorry you went 0 for 6, but wouldn't that have been amazing if I picked one of your joke picks?
Yeah.
I was like, I was really my super ex-girlfriend.
It's possible. You could have been like, I was 14. I liked Jennifer Lopez. Made in Manhattan was just really good. I mean, you did see Osmosis Jones. I felt like that could have been...
I did. I at least saw that movie in a theater. During the summer, I think, when I feel like we had nothing else to do, and Mom, I think we got dropped off at the theater and we're like, go watch a movie for a couple hours. And yeah, I have a weirdly distinct memory of Osmosis Jones. I don't know why, but it's like,
I love that.
It sticks out in my mind as a good time. So
we had a dollar theater at one point in our mall, and they had Edward Scissorhands for like years, it felt like. And so whenever we just had a dollar, we'd go see Edward Scissorhands. We saw it, my friend Aaron and I saw it, I don't even know honestly how many times, but definitely double digits, just as something to do, which is bizarre, but there you go. That's what happened. But Matt, thank you for being our first guest for VHS Presents Screen Teens. Your podcast is Film Feast. I almost said Final Feast, where I was like, wait, it's not Final.
That's coming soon. No,
okay. The Final
We'll switch
Feast.
for like October horror movies. No, yes, Film Feast. It's everywhere you get podcasts. New episodes usually come out Mondays. I will say, by the time this comes out, I think we'll be kind of doing a bi-weekly schedule for a little bit because, So basically, I'll be doing a couple episodes. I'll release them bi-weekly through September. I'm trying to get ready for October because there's 5 Mondays. I want to do all horror episodes, but I have a very busy October. My sister is getting married smack dab in the middle of the month. I'm going to be out of town, I think, the first weekend. It's going to be a very busy month in general. So I have to kind of get ahead of that. So I'll be busy in September. So it's going to be a little weird, but usually most Mondays you can find Film Feast episodes. And you can follow the podcast on Twitter at Film Feast Pod. You can follow me on Twitter at Maplet87. Follow me in the podcast on Instagram at Film Feast, all one word. And just thank you for letting me talk again. I feel like I talked a lot on this episode. I said a lot of things. There were a lot of titles at you.
We had a lot of stuff to cover, and I think we did it in a very expedited pace. I think we nailed it.
I think it was pretty succinct. I ramble on, so this was good. This was a ton of fun. I love doing this. I was so excited this episode when I was making the list. I was like, I can't wait to talk about these movies because I love all of them. They all mean a lot to me. So
that's excellent. Well, I hope you enjoyed the process. Thank you again for sharing some of what made you the cinephile you are today. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VHS Presents Screen Teens. I almost said new releases and late returns, but that's not right. It's Screen Teens. Till next time.